You are now tuned into the sounds of
Big Nate Sports Talk.
It's on all the time, anytime.
Friday night, laid back, feeling smooth. Looking for just a little something to get into. Tired of the same old scene.
Looking for something different, if you know what I mean.
So when I saw you, there was no in between. You came up to me like something from out of my dreams. A woman from the pages of a magazine. Deep inside my heart, you scream. I can't understand. Hey, just wanna hold you. Hey, baby, how you do the things I'm watching you do. All we're in is love. Just wanna make some love. All I wanna do, my girl, is dance with you. Now we're in this club. Your cheek pressed to my face, trying not to lose control, but I ain't got no time to waste, cause I came up in the club,
Standing face to face with perfection.
and it would be your body all over my body.
This is what I'm thinking of.
Hey, woo, I can understand. Just wanna hold your hand, watching you do.
You are now tuned in to Big Nate Sports Talk, the show that is on all the time, anytime. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the next big thing, the latest up-and-coming sports journalist, your host, Nathan Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony Haney, for that wonderful introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Nathan Snell of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all staying safe. This is episode 18, season 16. This is part 3 of One Mind, One Goal as we continue our WNBA playoff coverage. But before we get into that, there's a few things I want to say up front. I apologize if you did not see this part 3 go up. I know I talked about it in a video that went up Friday that I was supposed to do it this past weekend. Didn't happen. Had some other things I had to take care of that were priority. Tomorrow I will record my thoughts on the Ravens and Commanders getting their victories for week 2. And same for the Maryland Terrapins football going 3-0 in their non-conference schedule. And we will continue our playoffs coverage in part 4. We already have one team that's already swept and going into the next round. Tomorrow's set of games, it's a must-win. The Minnesota Lynx forced to game 3. The Washington Mystics and the Atlanta Dream need to survive to force a game 3 on their home courts, respectfully. But I cannot do it alone. Ladies and gentlemen, you already know him. He's already at this point, as I've already stated numerous times, he's practically a co-host of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome back Mr. Brenden Potts. Brenden, what's going on, buddy?
Doing good. I'm ready to get talking to some WNBA. It's about time we get back into it.
Absolutely. I like the energy. So far, we're in round 1. It's been off to an interesting start. We got one prediction right so far with the Las Vegas Aces sweeping the Chicago Sky. And that brings me to the first segment, the segment called Exit Stage Right. Brenden, I'm coming to you. This was an interesting year for the Chicago Sky. They've got a lot of things to do. As of their exit interview as of today, Kylie Copper stated that the head coaching position and the GM position will be separate. Just what are your takeaways for the Chicago Sky going into the offseason?
Yeah. First of all, I think coming into the year, they lost Candace Parker, they lost Courtney Vandersloot, and you know they lost Allie quickly too. Not many people remember that. So expectations were pretty low for them, and I believe they exceeded expectations. They weren't expected to make the playoffs. They were expected to be a lottery team, and whether you like it or not, they did make the playoffs. They were part of the part of the field. They did play a couple extra games. Unfortunately, they were the team that got the draw of the Aces. So like we talked about last time, it was either them or LA that were going to get that. So they exceeded expectations in my mind. In terms of the offseason, I'm glad that they're splitting the two roles. They had James Wade doing both, and at some points he was a genius, being a GM during his tenure, but at some points there were some questionable moves. And that's the other thing I forgot to mention was they lost their head coach midway through the season, and they still managed to make the playoffs. I don't believe they were in the picture when they lost him. I could be wrong, but they managed to overcome that hurdle. So they've been through a lot that a rebuilding team typically goes through. Some of it's normal, some of it's not. But they managed to make the playoffs, and I think that's a big win for their season. I believe it's a process. I think a player like Alana Smith, I don't think she's going to come back. I think that was a slap in the face to bring Marina Mabry in. I think that was a big slap in the face to Smith.
You mean Dana Evans?
Dana Evans. I'm sorry. I did not mean Alana Smith. I meant Dana Evans. I apologize.
All good, buddy.
Yeah. So, same sentiments. Like that was a big slap in the face to her. I don't think she'll be back for the Sky next year. Continuing to build around Kalea Copper. One key free agent for Chicago is going to be Courtney Williams. If they don't bring her back, man, do I want her to come to Seattle. She fits perfect. Just for a second, she fits perfectly in Seattle. We need a point guard. We need a veteran point guard at that. And just the way that she plays, it matches up completely with what we're building here in Seattle. She'd be a perfect fit. Every single time I watch Chicago, whether it's in person or on TV, I always see Courtney Williams as the hardest worker on the floor, and on either team. And it's just so cool to watch that. It's even cooler to watch it in person. And just the way she plays, man, she fits perfectly in Seattle. But for Chicago, they need to figure out what to do with her.
Yeah, I second all those sentiments. I personally think it starts with who's going to be their head coach. Now, personally, who I think they had at the helm as interim, I think he should be in consideration. I know you've talked about your assistant coach next to Noah Quinn, Pokey Chapman, who is also a consideration. Coach Witherspoon, I think would be a good candidate. But they just got to figure out some things, and that starts at the top. Because I'm looking at their contracts right now, 6 players will be free agents. Ruthie, Herbert, Rebecca Gardner, Courtney Williams, Alana Smith, Robin Parks, Megan Burstich are reserved, and Julia Ullman's suspended. And I don't really know, like you already talked on Dana Evans. Isabel Harrison will be back next year. That's also we got to take into account she was also injured as well. Marina Mabry needs to. I'm glad that she took accountability and wants to get better because I think she was the key to the success for this season for this team. She didn't live up to expectation. And again, I just think the way how James built this team was already funky. He did kind of leave them in a bit of a predicament because now you got swept out the first round, and now you don't have anything to really show for it. So they got a tough road ahead of them going into the offseason for sure. But Let's go back into the game. We pretty much knew that they weren't going to win. They really just had no answers for them whatsoever in the game, and this was a quick and easy series for the Aces. They definitely took advantage of it. I would have hoped that Chicago would have responded, had a little bit more effort in this game, but they just didn't. I thought the key coming in the game too was protect the paint, and they just didn't. They just are not talented like Chicago. And game 2, did you see any chance that Chicago could have made something out of it?
No, it seemed to be. I think this is a bigger win for Vegas. On Chicago's side, I didn't see anything that could have made it close or anything. I think this makes Vegas more dangerous. This win right here, and I'll tell you why. This is a very important non-spoken fact of what's going on here. This makes Vegas that much stronger because you think about when they went through their issues in the season and the players thought it would be fatigue or thought it was because of fatigue. Well, they won this past Friday. So Friday or Saturday. So they had at least one day off because they had Sunday off. Monday off. Tuesday, there's games, so they're off. Wednesday, they're I don't believe they're scheduled to play because of games. Thursday, maybe, depending on what happens. So almost a week of rest. I think they're going to get the full week of rest. And when you get a team like Las Vegas that much rest, it makes them that much dangerous. They're that much better. So that's what I'm pretty sure Vegas knew that. Like they were gonna get rest if they just swept them out of the building. I said the last time I was here, I said Vegas needs to come in and get the job done, no playing around, and that's exactly what they did. My key for this game or for this series in particular, and really, I mean, it starts from the playoffs last year. Regular season, you can say A'ja Wilson's the best player on the team. You can say she's the best player in the league. Playoffs come around, she's not the best player on the team. That would be Chelsea. That would be a combination of Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young, A'ja Wilson can get in there sometimes. Kia Stokes has stepped up big time. There's no singular best player for the Aces when it comes to the playoffs it could change on a given night. Chelsea Gray showing why she's the point guard. I mean she's amazing. We all know that. So, and she proved that last year was not a fluke. And yeah, this Vegas team is for real.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree with that. Though my only thing was, especially when A'ja goes off the floor, I need the guards to step it up a little bit more. And I think that kind of, you see a difference when she's not on the floor versus when she's on the floor. So I'm hoping that Coach Hammond noticed that in the game and is going to make that adjustment in the next series. So let's transition painfully, the Washington Mystics and the New York Liberty. The Washington Mystics lost 90-75. Brenden, I'm coming to you first. Is the series over?
No, it's not over. It's one game, and I get it's best of 3. I get it's an elimination game for the Mystics the next game, but they've done. I mean, they've done their due diligence in this game. The Mystics have on the Liberty. They've seen what they look like. They've seen how they operate. And the thing for the Mystics is the big thing for me, looking at them, or biggest question I'm asking rather is, can Sabrina have a replicating game? Because the biggest issue for me for her, or for me when I'm watching her, is consistency. That's been the issue all season for me. Some days she'll hit I believe the last shot that she did from like half court. She did it against Seattle. I know exactly how you feel when those shots go in. They're painful to see. So some days she'll
I have a question
she'll
for
make
you.
those.
I'm sorry.
And then some days she'll miss all of those shots that she takes. So my biggest question about Sabrina is can she keep the consistency?
My question for you is, you're on the West Coast. You've seen Oregon play. Is that something coming into the league that you believe that she has gotten better at, or still needs improvement?
I mean, college game and pro are two different beasts. So I mean, the shot making from that far, or the consistency part?
Consistency. My apologies.
I think it's more I think it's more steady. Maybe the you gotta take into account that Sabrina, throughout her whole career, college and pro, she's been the best player on the team, on the floor for the team, for Oregon, for New York. This is the first year where she kind of has to take a back seat. I'm not saying she can't do that, because obviously she's shown that she can. It's just she still has a big impact, whether she goes for 30 points on 8 3-pointers, or 10 points on two 3-pointers. So there's still the scoreboard still shows a big impact that she has, whether her team wins or loses. But I think it's just steadily stayed the same.
No, when you look at this New York Liberty team, now we know offensively what they can do. Coach Brandella believes in this offense. Defensively, do you think you can trust them in a series, especially game 2, going up against Washington, who I think will have a better outing? Do you trust the defense?
I think so. Here, I think it's just going to be a matter of who can shoot better. And I mean, both teams are similar in that aspect. I mean, Washington's got shooters, but New York's just they got depth. And like I said the last time I was here, and I think you'll say the same thing, Shakira Austin's a big loss in this series. And it's so difficult to see this Washington team, who has so much potential. We've known it from the start of the season, possibly go down this way because of a key injury. It's really been the story of the season for Washington. I'm not I'm looking at how the defense is for Washington more than New York, because Natasha Cloud came out and she came out and she said, "I'm guarding Sabrina for 40 minutes." And I said, good for you. My issue, or my question I've seen all around Twitter, social media, is if Natasha Cloud's going to say this, that means Stewie's about to go off. And I said, does anybody realize that A, Natasha Cloud's not guarding Stewie, and B, Elena Delle Donne's held her own against Stewie and like at least this season. So how does that dictate who goes off for the Liberty? But whether it's Stewie or Sabrina or whatever, it'll be interesting to see who really takes the reins. I feel like it's going to be Stewart just because it's an elimination game for one team. So I think Stewie's gonna take it up to a next level. But it should be a very, very good game. I think it's gonna be very competitive.
I thought what was key in the loss was shooting. The first quarter, we came out, we set the tone, we looked pretty good. First 4 possessions. For 3 quarters, the Mystics just had no answer for them. The New York Liberty just took control of the game. I mean, whether it was on the offensive side of the ball, whether it was on the defensive side of the ball, we were getting out rebounded. Brittany Sykes said it in one word to me. One word that stood out to me was effort. I mean, literally, they just didn't look good. And they made no adjustments. And this has kind of been the story all season. And I've asked Coach T this several times about playing 40 minutes consistently. I agree with you. I think New York wanted it more. They wanted it and it showed. I mean, I don't know about you, but you're not going to win basketball games where your starting point guard played 32 minutes, for example, and had 2 points. 4 points, excuse me. Yeah, she had 8 rebounds, 8 assists. Maisha Hines led all scores with 21 points for the Mystics. Brittany Sykes had 18. But no answers to stopping Sabrina Ionescu.
He didn't even try.
And it just... go ahead, Brenden.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, like Sabrina will go off for 7 threes, 29 points. But if she doesn't, if it's a game where, hey, she's not shooting that well today, or she's not particularly playing well, can the Mystics stop other players on their team? Because if Sabrina's not having a good game, they need to stop a player like Benija Laney. And, even when Sabrina shot well, they couldn't stop her. She had 19 points, 8 rebounds, 3 for 6 from the 3. And what hurts the Mystics the most is Courtney Vandersloot was their second lowest scorer in the starting lineup. Their lowest score. Yeah, their lowest score
7
in the
points.
starting lineup.
Look at
Second
the box right
lowest
now.
Brianna Stewart, and who had 10 points. So, for New York, why they're so successful is because everybody else but Stewart is able to score no problem. So that's the thing for the Mystics.
But here's the thing. But here's also the thing. When I'm looking at the box score, the starting 5 for the Mystics were all in the negatives. And it doesn't help when you're 5 of 22 from 3.
Mm-hmm.
I can't defend that. What do you want me to say to that?
I really, and that's where adjustments have to be made, because I feel like Washington was trying to now, in that game, was just trying to do too much instead of just taking good shots. And I thought some of the looks just weren't going in. Elena Delle Donne offensively did not have a great night. She couldn't find her rhythm. And some of that, I think, was New York's defense and how they dictated the pace. And I think Washington just failed to adjust. And on top of that, too, the bench didn't really give me much. I mean, Keanu Hawkins there was only 9 points off the bench. I mean, New York's bench they got less than 8 minutes, had 5 points combined. So, I mean, this I don't know. That was just very disappointing. Um, I think the key for Washington in game 2 is they got to limit the transitions points. They got to get back on transition defense. They allowed 19 second chance points. That's unacceptable, and that's a team that prides on defense. This was a number one ranked defense last year. And granted, I did a preview, BrandonSportsblog.com. Without Shakira's, their defensive rating is 80. With her, it's like 89 compared to without her, they give like 103. Like that's a big difference. And I think having this time off, because they went back and forth between New York and DC. They're actually back in New York now. So they came back home probably, I believe it was that Saturday or Sunday. Just get a good practice in there. Yeah. But also to the off-ball movement. I don't know if you noticed that. It's frustrating, man. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this next game that was painful. Dallas and Atlanta. Your takeaways.
Well, my first takeaway is Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta had this one in the bag. Everybody knows that. But I'm so glad that my last take was right about Ryan Howard and her spotlight. It. Yeah. Did I really call what we all knew? I mean, that it's the same thing as saying, "Oh, the Aces are gonna sweep the sky." Yeah, of course they are. when I say is Ryan Howard ready for the playoffs? She was. And that's I think that's really cool for a player this young in her career, and this I don't want to say inexperienced, but this, I mean, this far into your career, in your first playoff game, you go off the way she did. That was great. But I mean, this is a two-sided coin here. One side is Atlanta should have held that lead. And that's on them. That's on Dickie Johnson and their squad over there.
Tanisha Wright.
Tanisha Wright. I'm sorry. I keep, the name and the picture of whom I'm thinking of are different, and it's just messing with my head.
I got you.
But yeah, that's on Tanisha Wright. She needs to, rally the troops and win. That's a game you should have won. And on the other side, kudos to Dallas for not letting it detour them and rallying back and winning this game. Because I keep stressing how important it is for a team like Dallas to win at home, and to have that home court advantage, because it could make them a dangerous team. I mean, Arika Gumbawale, I almost said Nira again. Satu Sabli, amazing. I mean, we all knew this. This is stuff the stuff I'm saying. We all know how amazing these players are. It's just awesome to see them perform in the playoffs and to see them play under the bright lights. So good for Dallas for getting this one. For Atlanta, you have a chance to bounce back. You have a chance to make it a 1-1 series, which I definitely think they could. this shows that Dallas isn't as unstoppable as I've promoted them to be. Atlanta's a young team, a relatively young team, lots of young experience, whether it's rookie or second years, and they were up by 20 plus against the Dallas team with a lot of veterans, and a lot of more talented players than Atlanta's got. And it shows that Atlanta, if I'm Atlanta, I'm saying we can win this series. We know how to beat this team. We just got to go out there and execute it. So if I'm Atlanta, I'm pretty, despite this loss, I'm pretty confident that we can win this series.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is what happens when you're a coach that's been first time in the playoffs since 2018 for Atlanta. I was extremely disappointed that you don't call a timeout at all during that comeback. I had to blow a 20-point lead, and you don't call at least a timeout at that stretch. That stings. And on top of that, too, their offense went very flat in the game. Now, shout out to Tyler from the committee. He did ask Coach Wright why Haley Jones minutes were kind of getting rolled back, and I think it just was adjustments and fitting in style. And I would like to see her get some more minutes. I agree, but I definitely think she needs to be getting some minutes. She has not been come off the bench at all, and I get it. Come playoff time, every team shortens their rotations. You can speak on this last year, and they lean towards experience. But I mean, Danielle Robinson, A.D. Durr, Artie McDonald, they struggled. And I'm not saying Haley Jones. I think putting her in there, and I don't think you put her in that moment, but I think you're going to have to find a way. Okay, how do I sprinkle her in lineups on the defensive side or the offensive side at times? And yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing that kind of that stuck out to me. But I do think that.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
I have a question for you. When you say put her in the moment, do you mean in the middle of a game in a tense situation, or do you mean like in the playoffs? Because she's a champion. She's an NCAA champion. I'd argue that she's been in bigger moments than a WNBA playoff game. I would make that argument.
Right. No, I think she should have been put in there, especially when the guards that you put, the guards like A.D. Durr, Aria Mitchell, and Donnie, they just weren't getting it done. I mean, there were turnovers. Dallas was forcing turnovers. They were in the passing lanes. They just had no answers. And you could have put her in there and see what she could have done. But for her not to come off the bench at all, that didn't make any sense to me. I'm not saying she got to play 30 minutes, but she should have gotten some type of opportunities, because if the three guards you have out there are getting it done, that's not helping you. And that's what Daniel Robinson was traded for. That's what ADD. They have experience. Aria McDonald has experience, and they just disappointed. Outside of Cheyenne Parker, I didn't like the shot selection at times. I felt like they went to her a little bit too much. I mean, she's going to get hers in the paint, but they got to really make some adjustments. Hey, and you called it, Ryan Howard. She did have a bit of a cold. She kind of cooled off in the second quarter, but hey, she was not afraid. She had 8 threes, 36 points. And that just lets me know what the future of this league is going to be like, especially with her and Satu having that back and forth the way they did in the game. But I think it's over for Atlanta. I do. I just think I don't see it. I think that blowing a 20-point lead and just not having any answers for that, and that's coaching, and I don't know how you come out in tomorrow's game other than you got to attack early. You got to get Dallas off the 3-point line. You got to get Terry McCowan early foul trouble. You got to do a lot to beat Dallas. That's just my keys. Your keys for game 2.
Yeah, I mean, trying your best to limit Sawtoo. I mean, you kind of went through the gauntlet in individual scoring that you got to limit Dallas to in order to win. I mean, yeah, limiting Sawtoo, limiting Enrique, and then they got Tierra McCowan. I said it in the last time we previewed this series. The reason why Dallas is going to win is because is magnified if Enrique is not the best player in this series this series for Dallas, and the amount of pressure that's taken off of her this particular series, really as long as they're in the playoffs, is she's not the best player on her team, and she doesn't have to be. That's Sawtoo. And it's because she's just so damn good. I mean, looking at the box score here, I mean, 5 points, 8 rebounds for Natasha Howard, but she makes as big of an impact as any of the other starting five. Say the same thing for Crystal Dangerfield too. So it's going to be an uphill battle for the Dream. But you know, they've proven that they can hang with a team like Dallas. Dallas isn't as unstoppable as some people, including me, have advertised. But ultimately, I'm gonna take Dallas in this game too. But I'm not putting Atlanta away just yet.
Then that's fair, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. I think it'll be I'm hoping it'll be a better game too. I think they will come out. They'll come out ready. But that was very disappointing for Atlanta. Let's transition into game 2 of this series. Minnesota. I'm trying to find the word. Just, I'm shook. They forced a game 3. Damn.
I didn't have that on my bingo card.
I think the key. We talked about it. Nafisa Collier said, that she didn't have a good game, but also Coach Cheryl Reeves said too. Others around Nafisa got to step it up, and Kayla McBride and Nafisa Collier, they went off. What were some of your takeaways from the game?
First of all, if you watch that game, I hope DeWanna Bonner's okay, because she got beat the hell up, man. And she's walking off the court with blood on her with blood coming out her nose, and then she's coming back, and then she gets beat up again. It's just like, oh my gosh. So I hope she's doing okay. But Minnesota came to play, and I think that's something that only they knew what was gonna happen. But here's the thing, with first of all, it was only a 7-point game that turned into Minnesota's way. Connecticut had plenty of opportunities to win this game. The thing for Minnesota was they just had too many clutch moments. Whether it was, I think it was mostly Nafisa Collier, just shot too many shots in the clutch, and I just watched that game and I said, damn, Minnesota's just clutch in the moment right now. But there were plenty of opportunities for Connecticut to come out and win this game. They just had to get a stop or two. They just couldn't get it done. Minnesota was just shooting too well. Mainly they were getting shots in the mid-range, and some were lucky threes, but mostly they moved towards the mid-range as the game progressed. But no, amazing show out from Naphisha Collier, from Caleb McBride, as you said. They were aggressive. Like I said earlier, DeWanna Bonner getting beat the hell up. I'm not saying it has to be that extreme, but like they were aggressive with a really good Connecticut team. So they bought themselves another game. I mean, you live to fight another day. Now we find out how real both teams are. Last time I talked about this Connecticut team's for real, and they have that potential. They have the potential that they showed game one that shows they are competitors in this league. They can go to the finals. And then the other end, where you are getting out physicaled by essentially a rebuilding team in Minnesota. And on the other side, Minnesota, you got first game experience for a lot of players on this team. And then and it showed. And then on the other side, you got a team that proved to be the better team on that given night against Connecticut, a championship contender for some people. Which my thing for game 3 is which teams on both sides are we going to see, and that'll determine the series.
Most definitely, and I think this is where your money. This is where your money's made. This is why you need the potential MVP Alyssa Thomas to come out and ball. We all know she's going to. DeWanna Bonner, and again, Coach Wright. I think Coach Wright knows he need a little bit more from the guards. I think the guards are going to be key for Connecticut in this game. Especially, Dejanay Carrington coming off the bench, Natisha Heidemann, Tiffany Hayes. This is what they traded her for. These are moments where we need you to step up. All of them, respectfully. Rebecca Allen, she's been exceptionally a gem with this offense. And same thing with Minnesota. Other than Caleb McBride, let's not forget Ariel Powers, Diamond Miller, Dorka. They got some pieces. So I still think Connecticut will win the series. I'm confident with them. They have the playoff DNA to get the job done, if that makes sense.
I agree. And I'll show you how close this game was. It was a 7-point game. Rebecca Allen went 1 for 6 from the 3-point line. She took 6 attempts. And she scored 10 points. She makes 3. She goes 4 for 7 from the 3-point line. They win, and they're going to the next round. So that's how close this game was. So if she has even a slightly better game, if a singular Rebecca Allen, who you said was a gem for this team, and I agree, if she has even a slightly better game this upcoming game, they win a game like that. So, yes, it was uncharacteristic for Connecticut. You can go individual player-wise, but, I mean, this second game was close.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. We're gonna have some good elimination games tomorrow. Let's transition into the awards. Brenden, we already had 2 awards already announced. Stephanie White, ahead of game 2, was announced Coach of the Year. What is your reaction?
I mean, yeah, we talked about Chicago losing Candace Parker, franchise player, losing Courtney Vandersloot, essentially going through a rebuild. And Connecticut was the first team that lost a franchise player in Jonquil Jones, and everyone's saying, "Oh, they're gonna rebuild. They're losing talent left and right. They lost Courtney Williams as well. They lost Kurt Miller. They're going through a rebuild. They're gonna rebuild. They're not gonna compete in the playoffs. They are gonna be a bottom team with someone like Seattle or Chicago, or you're gonna have the set teams, which opened up in theory an opportunity for a team like Indiana to fit in. But first year in Connecticut, I am thinking the W, but I forget about her time like it with Indiana and so on and so forth. First year with Connecticut, and you essentially produce someone who's in the MVP race. You give Connecticut, I think Jonquil Jones was a breath of fresh air, losing her. And you losing a player like Bree Jones in the middle of the season, you kind of panic. And she's important. Yeah. She's a pinnacle player for this team. But that's not what they did. And they kept the reins up and they chugged their way to the playoffs, and they could be a championship team like we mentioned, or like I mentioned earlier. They could be a championship team if they wanted to. No doubt in my mind does this go to Stephanie White.
Yeah, no, I agree. I look at the rest of the list. Stephanie White had 36 votes. Coach Trammell had 11. Coach Brondello had 6. Coach Hammond had 3. And Coach Reeves and Tanisha Wright tied with 2 votes. You can make an argument for Coach Trammell to be Coach of the Year, but definitely Stephanie White. I agree. I echo all your things, especially our first year head coach. I'm happy for her, and it was definitely much deserved. Congratulations to Coach White on being Coach of the Year, 6th Woman of the Year. Brenden, your former Seattle Storm favorite player, Alicia Clark, won 6th Woman of the Year. What were your thoughts?
Well, and I don't think I think this may or may not be news to you, but she's also my birthday twin. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for her. Listen, she's a former Storm player. We love her. I don't think you'll ever run into a Storm fan that doesn't love AC, even now. I was listening to, you brought up Tyler from the committee. I was listening to someone, I believe it was him. It might have been someone else from the committee, but they said this perfectly. Alicia Clark is the difference in a very, very, very good Aces team and a super team, Las Vegas Aces. She's the difference. The fact that a player as good as her is coming off the bench and producing the way that she is, she could be starting. I mean, she definitely start on Seattle, but she could be starting on other teams. But she's coming off the bench and she's producing, and essentially she doesn't care how many minutes she gets or what her role is. She's adapting, period. But I'm just so happy for her. And people forget, I believe it was a Lisfranc injury when she played for the Mystics. And I was right there with you. I felt so bad for her, and just the way. Listen, she's been through a lot. She's been through a lot. In the injury, losing her dad was really, really hard on her. And I'm just so proud. I'm so proud of her because she's overcome a lot. And if she indeed wins a championship this year, then I'm even more proud. But she definitely deserves this award. She's a great player. I'm so happy for her. So good for AC. We love you.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and then most congratulations to her. The rest of the voting, Dejanay Carrington had 13 points, 13 votes, excuse me. Dana Evans had 9 votes. Kalani Brown, Maureen Johannes, and Sammy Wickham had 1 vote apiece.
How do you do that? How do you do that? What the hell is going on?
I would have also liked to have considered Tiana Hawkins, but she did start a majority of the game of the season, so was automatically disqualified. But my question, and I get it, didn't have Candace Parker was out with the foot injury, but Dana I would say definitely got disrespected with the Marina Mabry signing. And then the injury hurt Dejanay for sure that last month of the season. So, yeah, that's pretty much 6 Women of the Year. I'm not mad at that. So I'm happy for Alicia. She's definitely been doing her thing. She's definitely found her rhythm. I know last year, watching with the Mystics, career-wise, her numbers just weren't the same. So I'm glad to see that she's playing a lot better this year. She looks good. And Las Vegas definitely has a gym. So let's transition into the last segment of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast, and that is one final thought. Brenden, what is your final thought?
Well, yeah, as you see, I'm wearing my Helinski's Hope hat, and Helinski's Hope is a dear organization for Pullman and WSU, and it's to advocate for mental health. And this month is mental health awareness. So everyone make sure to keep up with your mental health. If you need to talk to someone, then the right people are available, and just make sure you're checking in on people, and making sure everything's good in your life. And yeah, so that's kind of my message.
Yeah. My final thought is I kind of echo that a little bit. I think one thing that's kind of lost in our society a little bit is the moral and respect in terms of just making sure, and nothing wrong with asking, are you okay? I think sometimes people downplay mental health. It's serious. And I'm definitely, encouraging people, like you said it, just to check on someone. I had a phone conversation with a couple people today. And, they made me feel a little bit better today. And that's the most important thing, is reaching out to those that you can count on, and that you feel more comfortable, and not being afraid to speak what's on your mind. But definitely not being afraid to just reach out and just say, hey, I need to talk to you. So, and then that's really my final thought as well. And much appreciated for you for definitely representing an organization like that. Much appreciated to you for doing that, Brenden. I do know you have an announcement. We will do that in part 4. Is that's what we're doing, correct? Part 4 is we want to make the announcement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yep.
I want to make sure I make sure I said that correctly. I don't want to throw a curveball and then you threw me a curveball.
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
doing it.
I got you.
Okay. So Brenden has an announcement in part 4. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of this episode of Big Nate Sports Talk Podcast. I will leave his link to his Twitter page in the description below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I will catch you guys on the flip side, and enjoy the rest of your evening. I hope you all had a great week, and had a great weekend, excuse me. Hope you have a great week. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Bye now.
episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share the next big thing, the next up-and-coming sports journalist, Big Nate Sports Talk. It's on all the time, anytime.
I want to thank you, yeah. I want to thank you. Ooh. For all the times you put up with me. Thank you. And you helped me retain my sanity. Thank you. I want to thank you. And I want to thank you. All I want to do is say thank you for everything you do.